Beep, 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 beep. All that's new and improved from the Jester News. Good morning, all. How are we? What have I got today? What have I got my budgy little fat hands on today? Well, I tell you, today we are going to talk, ladies and gentlemen, about the NHS. We're going to do through the window of indeterminate shape, size, or structure, and see just what's happening when the queery people have got their hands on the NHS. The NHS, beloved of the UK's population. I've met a lot of people from the NHS, and I mean a lot, thousands, right? In my I nearly said compressional capacity, my professional capacity over the years, I once had to teach very serious people, consultants, in, I think it was all about time management and leadership, this type of thing. And they came along, and I had the head of the renal unit, and I had the head of ophthalmology, and he went to the toilet more than anybody else, and she forgot her glasses. I thought, you can't write this. Now, I'm sure I've told that story before, which makes me understand that finally, when one does produce content en masse like I do, it does two things. First of all, it means you repeat yourself, and second of all, it means you realise how shallow you are, because you tell the same stories all the time. So anyway, I've been in and out the NHS for the last 2 years. For people that are close to me will know the reasons why, and I'm, because I'm not well and all that stuff that comes when you get to be an old fart that's overdone it on the Stilton, the port, the cigarettes, in fact, on everything. So never once have I met somebody with any deliberate intention of wanting to A, cause me offence, or B, hurt me in any way. In fact, it's exactly the opposite. The vast majority of people that I speak to, who are all frontline practitioners in one format or another and in various sections of the NHS, they have been nothing but considered, interested, right, compassionate, and overall committed to the project that is the NHS. Which leads me to believe that most of those people who are front-facing should probably be left alone. That doesn't stop me from saying, and this will upset some of you, my lefty companions. I've got a mate who works in quite a high position in the NHS, and we argue about this all the time. But the NHS is a socialist state in itself, and it needs culling enormously. Loads of people have to go, just not the ones that are doing the important job, right? And there's an article today which I think backs up my rather extreme point that the NHS needs an enema, okay? From procurement, management, administration, and most of all, when we get really to the nub of the little brown starfish of the NHS, it's got to be the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Department. Right? So the Daily Fail, which is one of those, everybody's horrible type papers, but who seems to me to be the only one that will tackle really difficult subjects, which of course then the left won't read. It's a nightmare, isn't it? It's a nightmare. Because, guess the Daily Mail is not true. Well, what if it is? They just don't look. I've got the same problem with other people. It's like, well, the Guardian said, I said, what does it say in the Telegraph? Oh, I don't know, I wouldn't read that. Read them all, you bloody idiots. Right? Read them all. God. Oh, people love their little boxes, don't they? Little boxes. Great. I love that song, and there's a good story behind that. You should have a look into it. They're all made out of ticky-tacky. Very appropriate, that song, for today's little diatribe. Exclusive in the Daily Fail. Treat all patients as gender neutral. NHS doctors told Health Secretary's anger at taxpayer-funded guide that tells medics not to use pronouns until patients has confirmed them. Oh, what that actually says. Ta-da! That headline is. What is being asked of the NHS, or the people that work within it, is you will be homophobic. That's what they've been told. You will put homophobia before anything else. Before you actually say to me, hello, Mr. Wall, hello, Barry, how you doing? You've got to use pronouns. You will be homophobic and you will be misogynistic, first and foremost. That's what that means. Because the use of pronouns in emails or in life, in the way that they're being used, he, she, it, her, whatever they want to bloody call it, Zer, cat, fart person, farter, farting, whatever it may be, right? It's homophobic. It's profoundly homophobic. If I see it in an email, I'm like, yeah, we're done. Or you're an idiot, right? Or if I know the person and they've got it in their email, I think, yeah, you don't know yet. You haven't heard. You're living in your zone of innocence. You don't know. You don't know. So there's a guy called, right, Steve Barclay, right? Now, you can see Steve. He looks like a bruiser. Great guy. Let's go. Come on, Steve. Get the boxing gloves out. Give these lefties a good smacking, right? Don't get me about, oh, it's not the left, it's the right. I had somebody try and tell me it was Thatcher was responsible for gender identity yesterday. You are kidding me if you think that this is the right. Right? And I can tell you why. Because there's the old tropes about the left and the right. Let's talk about sex for a minute, you know? The left and the right, okay? The right, Ave Maria, missionary position. Don't enjoy it, you know? That's the right, okay? Missionary position, don't frighten the horses, keep quiet, shut the door. That's the right, okay? The left, go steady with your Afghan. Hey, Rover. That's the left, right? Do what you want, but I'm going to give you an instruction booklet. Thrust firmly to begin. Ooh. That's the left, right? Controlling swine. Okay, so that's the two ends. If you think this comes from the right, you're a nutter. Somebody get in the Labour Party and deal with them. It's not the Labour Party. These people are so mad. It's not you, the left, left you. You didn't leave the left, okay? They have gone insane under Kweer starter motor, okay? That's what's happened, right? Steve Barclay last night ordered an urgent investigation. You can feel the NHS creaking into gear. It will start in 2027. Stephen Barclay last night ordered an urgent investigation into new guidelines that tell NHS staff to treat all patients as gender neutral. The Health Secretary demanded answers after learning taxpayers had funded the guide to inclusive communication. Okay, so two questions. How much do you think they got paid? And who do you think they consulted? Let's continue. It instructs doctors and nurses not to use phrases such as Mr. and Mrs. or he and she, for the love of God, until a patient has confirmed their gender identity, which means they confirm that they are a follower of a homophobic and misogynistic cult. Not complicated, is it? This is great, this article. Right, okay. And they are also told to consider that this may have changed since the individual's last appointment, even if they see them regularly, right? So, okay, so what they're saying is lunacy, right? Let's do some lunacy, right? This nut job, who 1 minute thinks they're one thing and the next minute thinks they're another, you have to remember which thing they're thinking they are so that you don't confuse them. In fact, you can't actually use the word Mr. and Mrs. at all because constantly, because if I come in tomorrow, I might be Mrs., whereas yesterday I was Mr., so I'm Barry on Fridays and I'm Barry on Mondays. Taxpayer-funded money. This lunatic nonsense needs to stop. 16 pages of it. What the? The 16-page document features a foreword by Dr. Michael Brady, National Advisor for LGBT Health at NHS England, who describes it as a must-read for all health and social care professionals. Hey, Dr. Michael Brady. Just go away, you stupid man, right? I am so virtuous. I have designed 16 pages of edicts and tenets, which will mean that the NHS finally succumbs to a cult that lots of people have been warning about and the people at the top have done nothing about. That's where we're at, folks. It's all a bit dystopian, isn't it? That's what I say. Did I say folks? Sorry, I meant, creatures of indeterminate, whatever you are, ephemeral, floating flesh sacks. Have I introduced you to my friend here, the ephemeral floating flesh sack that is Barry? Carefully, he drips. I want these people out. Get them out. Kick them out. Fire him. God almighty, don't mess them out. Stop messing about and fire him. And then it says what you should do. Gender identity. Asking open questions around gender identity ensures that people feel respected. I am not going to respect your homophobic and misogynistic, anti-science, anti-human, female-hating, child bloody catching nonsense. So you can F off. Go away. A segment of the NHS guidelines tells staff to avoid using the pronouns associated with the sex the patient was, wait for it, assigned at birth. Assigned at birth. I was only assigned at birth. I was only assigned at birth. It's like I suddenly popped out and then it was like, wait for it, it's going to appear. Ah, penis. It's a boy. Not that we've had the science for a very long time to go, it's a boy. You know, when a woman is 6 months pregnant. Or, oh God, I said a woman. When an individual of indeterminate ephemeral body sac is pregnant. Get these people in the bin. Right? A segment says, assigned at birth, which, you know, we expect that. It has been produced by researchers. And here's the answer to the first question. So, God, it's your last chance to have a guess. Say a number out loud wherever you are. Say it out loud. Even if you're on the bus or in the office, just say a random number out loud. So that people might go, what the you doing? Oh, nothing. Go on, tell me. Well, right. It has been produced by researchers who received a £164,964 government grant to do something that I could have done in an hour. In an hour, right? Because I know this shit so well. I could have done it in an hour. £164,964 government grant to study how clinicians could improve their communications with LGBT patients. It's not LGBT, it's T. It's T and Q. Stop it. And then present their findings how clinicians could improve their communication with LGBT patients and present their findings as evidence-based guidance for them to follow. Evidence-based guidance! It's evidence-based. It is. I laugh, but it is. It's evidence-based on their lived experience. You can screw off. Right. Right. Critics questioned why civil servants had considered it a better use of funds than providing more operations or ambulances. You know, it's four high-level nurses. The Department of Health warned that removing gendered language risked unintended adverse health consequences. Yeah, it'll send us all fucking mad. A source close to Mr. Barclay was said to have hit the roof. I do hope so. I hope that's right, not hit roof. That'd be awful, wouldn't it? Hit the roof after the guy was unearthed by the Mail. Revealed he had launched an investigation into the spending, adding taxpayers' money needs to be invested in fixing the NHS. I don't think it's broken particularly. I think the people that do the best work aren't broken at all. I think it's the administrators and the bureaucrats and the managers and the blah, 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 and the EDI czars and all the other people making money off of this bloated leftist state within a state. They're the ones that are the problem. Get somebody in, right, and say to the nurses and doctors, look, hold the fort. I'm going to get this lot out. That's what you need to do. That's what you need to do. I wonder what the structure of it's like. I bet it's less a pyramid and more a rectangle on its long end. The money that's being creamed off the public with this. I believe it's over 20% of our GDPR. No, not GDPR. it's GDP, isn't it? It's over 20% of our GDP, I think. Or is it 12%? I can't remember. Somebody go and have a look and put it in the Dewberries. Right? Really? So, the National Institute for Healthcare and Research, which bankrolled the guidance, is one of the UK's largest funders of health and care research and is funded directly by the Department of Health and Social Care. Come on! Go to them and ask for your money back. You have produced a document of no use to anyone. Give me the 126,000 grand back. Thank you very much. It is headed by the department's chief advisor and tasked with funding research that makes the health and social care system more efficient, effective and safe. And they'll argue, yes, but this is for people who are going into care. Stop pandering to delusion. It's not what the NHS is for. You know? If we section someone, you know, stick them under a section because they think that they're, you know, Napoleon and they're about to have their Waterloo. Same thing. All right? Stop it. Stop pandering to this mass delusion. Findings are published on its website. It made a grant to researchers at King College London. I mean, it's an unholy alliance of academia and the NHS. for the inclusive communication study, which started in June 2018. From June 2018 to now, 2022, for a 16-page leaflet that costed 165 grand. This requires a public investigation. Not a public investigation. It requires me to go in and have a look. And take a few others with me. Let's have some fun, folks. Hey? Let's have some fun. I'll get a committee. I'm at the head of the committee. I'm going to pick 6 other people and we're going to come in and we're going to shut you down, you stealing, thieving, robbing gits. Wouldn't it be great if that was what the name of the person that ran it was called? Robin Git. I can't believe this is true. I can't. Its findings were published in the academic journal, BMJ, Quality and Safety. Earlier this month, and the resulting guidelines released this week. The guide gives doctors example sentences and questions they could use to raise the issue of gender identity and sexual orientation during appointments, advises them to it early in your interaction with a patient. I've got a bad knee, doc. Yeah, who do you sleep with? I'm sorry? I've got a bad knee, doc. Yes, what's your sexual orientation? No, doc, I've got a bad knee. Do you have a gender identity? Hey, doc, can I have a bad knee? Really? No, I need to know these things. So who do you screw? And what do you think you are? Doctor? Yes, your knee. Yeah, we'll get to that. Now, what is your... Get lost. You box-ticking, creepy, leftist control freaks. Ugh. Right. So here's some of the tricks. Always ensure that you and your team try to get patients' pronouns right. Always ensure that you and your team create a hostile environment for homosexuals. If you're caring for a trans person and you or a colleague use pronouns that correspond with their sex assigned at birth, rather than... We don't do this, okay? It stops. Call them by their name, Mary. Right? And you don't get special privilege just because you're wearing bloody clothes that are normally associated with the opposite sex. You don't get it. But we'll call you Mary. I'm not calling you he when you're a she. I'm not calling you she when you're a he. Get stuffed. Another part of the document warns medics that using the incorrect pronouns for a patient may be unlawful and cause distress. So it's now illegal not to speak what they want you to speak. The government needs to step in. Rishi, where are you? Rishi, are you listening? Do something. You weak as water fool. Facial expressions often link strongly... I mean, how controlling are these people? Facial expressions often link strongly in how we feel and communicate a lot without us saying anything. When LGBT plus people, see they're lumping everybody together again, share information on sexual orientation, gender identity or gender history, there's now a gender history. Some have experienced disapproving expressions from professionals. Hold a neutral expression when discussing sexual orientation and gender identity helps to reassure patient and their significant others. No, it doesn't. Because I go to the doctors now and I say, look, doc, I have a tendency towards shirt lifting. I've been doing it for years. But there's something's appeared on me Johnny Thomas. And the doctor's there like this, with his neutral expression. You're going to know, because he's got the neutral expression, that he's thinking something else. And suddenly you're all... Instead, if you said, you take the risk, you pay some money. I wouldn't worry about it, Barry. I'm quite the same. I'm quite fanciful. I have a bit of this and a bit of that, or whatever. These weak freaks, absolute freaks. Your positioning and posture may suggest things to people about how you are feeling. Some LGBT plus people have experienced professionals. What they're saying is they're telling you that when dealing with people that are in the soupy people, the alphabet hands, knees, and bumps of daisy people, is that you must watch what you say. You mustn't make any facial expressions, and you've got to sit or stand in a certain way, and you have to use your body language in a certain way, as if what is sitting in front of you is a dangerous animal, which of course it is. That's how we categorize. I've said it before, I'll say it again. This is a danger to our society. And the mad, the ones that are involved in it, the mad, should be dealt with as just that. Mad. It's crazy, isn't it? So you ask yourself then, how much more insane can it get, right? What they also say is that when you should practice this with a trusted colleague. If they are concerned, they may struggle to conceal their surprise at some answers. So they're saying that don't be surprised when we tell you that black is white. Don't be surprised when we tell you that we've overturned hundreds of thousands of years of reality in the name of a few men that want to have a toss-off in a Marks and Spencer's changing room with a dress on. Don't be surprised when we tell you that the sex isn't real because of a young girl who's frightened to death of actually being female and therefore wants to cut her breasts off. Don't be surprised by that. It's just normal run-of-the-day stuff for the NHS. Get them out! It's mad. It's absolutely insane. In the foreword to the document, the LGBT czar, Dr. Brady, hey Brady, fancy a chinwag? Declares, the evidence-based guide gives simple and practical tips that we can all use, such as using neutral language. Simple and practical tips. Here's how we'll control how you sit, how you present yourself, how your face looks, and how you speak. Simple and practical tips. You lying, totalitarian, authoritarian womble. Fire him. The guide should be a must-read. No, thanks very much. We'll just stick it in the bin. Right? So my second question to you today, in my longer diatribe than usual, was, who do we think they consulted? Can we say it all together, all at one go, wherever you are? If you're on the bus, if you're in the doctor's, if you're shopping in Tesco's, if you're sat next to your mother. Let's all say it after 3. 3, 2, 1. Stonewall! And you'd be right. Here we go. Controversial campaign group Stonewall has written an introduction to the guide, have they really? How much? How much was the introduction? 1,500? 2 grand, 3 grand. How much money did you give to these thieving, lying, negligent, charity sector tossers? Go on, tell me how much. We hope that these guidance will be shared widely throughout the sector. If you get this, stick it in the bin. Screw them. Right? So here we go. I've got some more of this actual guide. Use neutral language until sure. Be homophobic and misogynistic and agree fealty to the to the cult before... Come in, Dr. Freud, to the cults before sure. Whether you are meeting them, patients, for the first time, or even if you have known a patient for a long time, always use language that is inclusive and do not make assumptions. Let's make the relationship between you and your patient fractious based on a cultish idea put together by cultish people and used by cultish adherents so that there is never anything that comes between you and the patient that isn't designated by the NHS as a socialist state. See what it is yet, folks? Right. The labels people use to describe themselves are important. No, they're not. They're not. Because if they're using labels to describe themselves that are nonsense, then they have absolutely no self-awareness and should be in some kind of insane asylum. Right? For example, if patients describe themselves as gay, do not change this to homosexual or lesbian, as this may mean something different. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Right? Gay, lesbian, homosexual. Most people that I know who are gay, lesbian, homosexual are fine with you using various words. Just do it, doc. Just do it, doc. What that is to pamper to men who think they're women and women who think they're men. If a patient describes themselves as non-binary or genderqueer, do not change this to trans. So now they're not trans. It's just insane. See, they're moving the goalposts all the time, but they're doing it on the playing field because it's the only playing field they've got. And now we guys have got sight of the playing field. We are going to get rid of you out of every institution in the country, including the schools and the NHS. Any business that's put themselves in the Stonewall Top 100 this year must now be feeling the sting because they've had a real kicking on Twitter. And if you aren't paying attention to what's going on and recognise that you've made a huge mistake, if I was you and you're a business, I would say you've made a mistake, pull yourself out of it all and say so publicly. But that's just me. The tone and volume of your words communicate a lot. Let's control your language. For example, emphasising words through tone or increased volume could indicate surprise. So you're a non-binary, fair girl, are you? Oh, nurse, call the men in white coats. If you're worried that you might have any of these reactions, practice talking about sexual orientation, gender identity and gender history with a colleague you trust. Don't do it, folks. This is unbelievable. This is actually cult indoctrination 101. For God's sake, don't do it. Suggested questions. Can I ask what are your pronouns? Can I ask if you have any important people in your life? And would you mind sharing your sexual orientation? Lovely to see you, Barry. Can I ask if you have any important people in your life? No. What's your sexual orientation? I didn't tell you if I've got important people in my life. What makes you think I'm going to tell you my sexual orientation? Oh, I'm actually in love with a bush. It's over in the park. Oh, well then it's bush and bush self, is it? Yes, it is. Yeah, do respect my pronouns. It is important for us to understand who you are, what matters to you, and who is important to you. No, it's not. No, it's not. You're clogging the NHS up with this bullshit, and the people in the NHS are telling me that you are. Okay? You go in, you're male or female, you're ill or you're not ill, you get treated, you get sent home, everybody's happy. That's all you get. When it comes to your ridiculous belief systems, you get toleration, which means if you talk about it, they won't tell you off. You do not get fealty, and you do not get people marching up and down to your damn tune. Fantastic. Go away. You've got to read this article. It's in the Dubris. Fellow Tory MP Craig McKinley said, to hear that funding, better spent on frontline NHS services in England, is still being allocated to such matters is beyond troubling. Do you think? Is any one of them ever going to make it? Just get this nonsense out. The Free Speech Union have highlighted it, that there's issues with it. Toby Young said the new guidance will make things much worse. The NHS staff who reach out to us are terrified about speaking out against trans ideology that has completely captured the health service. That's my experience as well. And I've seen hundreds in the last couple of years. Hundreds, all right? So don't tell me that it's not raining and piss on my leg with your ridiculous bloody nonsense. If people identify as LGBT, you don't identify as gay, you are. You don't identify as being a lesbian, you are. All right? Stop making our sexuality about your insanity and implying that we chose to be gay or lesbian. It's profoundly homophobic, this, and it's in the NHS. It's important to note here, a Department of Health and Social Care spokesman said the guide has not been endorsed by the government. That's a sackable offence in my book. Sack everyone down the chain that got involved. Do it. Removing language around biological sex has potential for unintended adverse health consequences. Do you think so? I think it does. Calculating what dose someone should get based on the fact that they're a woman because they say they are, even though they're a 6'4" bloke. Blood transfusions, differences in what's required by males and females. We know about these differences. Sajid Javid apparently has said he cracked down on waste and wokery in the NHS, but I'm not seeing it, including the proliferation of equality, diversity and inclusion managers. The health service has also come under fire for removing the word woman from its page. You know all this. Right, they need to get all this mental health stuff, that's got to go as well. Wellness. Here's a wellness hub in case, you can't cope with your job. If you can't cope with your job, quit. Somebody else will do it. Right, somebody else will do it. If you had people in place above those who are doing the real work, if you had these administration and bureaucrats and all that, whose sole job it was to prevent the NHS from mistreating its staff, things would be better for people. If you had somebody above, the people who do, nurses and doctors, who were there solely to present the beast, the socialist state of a beast that the NHS is to say that what you're asking is the impossible and we're not putting on staff under that stress, then people would be all right. And we used to have one of those. It was called Unison. Now, Unison will do great work in terms of getting people paid right, and they'll fight also for people who are, paid by the NHS but don't work for them directly to get the same money as the people in the NHS. That's great. But it appears to me that Unison is completely captured by this crap as well. So if you work for Unison, let me know. Are they completely captured? What are Unison doing to prevent this rank stupidity from being spread amongst its members, where we are seeing the NHS force people to become acolytes and cultists and adherents of the Church of Gender, Queer and Critical Social Justice? Where's Unison? Unison should be out the gate screaming, this crap needs to go. Where are they? Anybody know anybody in Unison that might want to talk about it? Anybody know anybody at the top of Unison that might want to talk? I mean, we know when it comes to universities, you've got that horrible woman, she knows nothing. So if anybody knows anybody at the top of Unison that would like to have a conversation, I'd like to have a conversation with them. Anyway, this is a long one today, wasn't it? But it's a great article. Go and see it. Right, okay? I met a Scottish GC yesterday. We were going to have a game of cards, but unfortunately, women won't whist. I blew that, didn't I? Listen, go well. It's been a long one. I'll see you soon. All right, bye-bye.